Hey everybody, how's it going? Today is Thursday, January 14th, and this is In Case You Missed Psychology, brought to you by 21st Century Fox. Not really. I'm not that cool. All right, so hey, if you're watching this, that means you missed class today, and that is okay. I hope you are well. I hope those around you are well, and I hope just generally things are going okay for you, and that you're wrapping up the semester strong, and that things are going to end super awesome in all of your classes. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to run you through everything that you may have missed if you weren't with us, and do that little recap and do some reminders, and then move from there. So wanted to mention the deadlines for everything. Dream Project was due last night by midnight. How would I put this? I got a lot of them. Not as many as I would have liked to have, but I got a lot of them. So remember, I have to have that Dream Project. That's a big grade. Okay, that was a project that we worked on over the course of a month or so, actually a little bit more than that. So that's kind of a big deal thing. So if you haven't gotten me that, make sure you get it to me. I know I got a number of messages and emails from people last night, stating they were having some problems. And that's okay. The rest of you guys who didn't talk to me, just make sure I'm getting it as soon as possible. Everything else, old tests, homework, things like that, please make sure that you are getting me that stuff by Friday at midnight. That's kind of my deadline. But obviously the is that you obviously need to make sure that you are talking to me if you need into the weekend, so that I know to look for those things. I want to have grades done Sunday night, so do me a favor and give me the things. On kind of that same tip, some of you guys owe me tests. Those are really big in your content score. Without tests, you're going to really see things drop, or you're going to see things drop into the 1s and 1.5s and or worse. So please make sure you take all the tests. If you're unaware of how to get to a test, please just message me and I can get you the link that you need. Also, we are taking a test tomorrow in class, or Friday, depending on what day you're watching this. And that is a required thing as well. We'll hand that to you during class, and that'll be due by midnight tomorrow. So today we're going to wrap things up. It's the last time you got to listen to the sound of my voice like this for a while, or for some of you at all, I guess. And as always, let me know if you have any questions. We're going to kind of look at 2 slides today. We're going to talk about some common sleep issues, and then we're going to talk about some sleep disorders or parasomnias. Okay, so here we go. And again, as always, if you have questions, please ask. All right, so some other sleep issues. I wanted to talk about some things that were actually pretty common. I mean, obviously, yesterday we talked about nightmares and night terrors. Nightmares being really common, night terrors not so much. But some other things that have come up a lot during this chapter, and then something I got asked a bunch of questions about, are, first of all, the common things that come up are sleepwalking and sleep talking, and other sleep behaviors where someone is up, moving, up, doing something, up, eating, whatever. Those things are all really pretty common, and therefore I want to talk about them. And then I've gotten a lot of questions on the side about snoring. Not a lot of you guys talking about yourself snoring, but talking about family members snoring, parents snoring, grandparents snoring. And so I thought I would add a little bit of that stuff in there before we get to the sleep disorders. So obviously sleepwalking and sleep talking are something that have commonly come up, and something that do usually commonly come up. People want to know about them. And so the first thing obviously is if you're sleepwalking or sleep talking, you are not paralyzed. So you are in REM sleep when that happens. And obviously the main reason for that is when you're in an REM, you can move. And unlike what you may see in movies or old TV shows, you do not sleepwalk with your arms out like my cartoon friend there from Hey Arnold. But you're going to appear to be awake. Your eyes are going to be open. You're going to move, but you're going to not be as quick, and you're going to be a little less coordinated. Now, you'll still be able to maneuver stairs pretty good. You'd still be able to do some basic functions there. There are people that cook and cut things during sleep. There are people that sleepwalk to the bathroom and maneuver going to the bathroom. I don't think you're going on operating a forklift or anything like that, but they're definitely, you're capable of regular behaviors. Okay. Sleepwalking and sleep talking do not necessarily indicate any kind of major problems. Obviously, you could get injured. You could fall down, you could trip over something being unaware of it. Usually your subconscious will make sure that you don't, like trip over your laundry basket in your room or anything like that. But it doesn't usually indicate any sort of problem. What I basically read is 9 things out of 10 that I read were like, as long as the person isn't putting themselves in physical danger, you try to, guide them back to a safe spot, the couch, their bed, a chair, get them to sit, lay down or whatever and go back to sleep or continue their sleep in a more safe space. Or if they're doing something dangerous, you wake them. There used to be this old myth that if you woke a sleepwalker, it'd be a jolt and they would have a heart attack. That is not at all the case. So you can guide them back, and if you wake them up, it's not a big deal. Obviously, they did say, however, that if the behaviors were becoming unsafe, where a person was getting hurt often, or a person was putting themselves in danger, that there are certain sedatives that can be prescribed that would stop this kind of behavior, more or less, like not immobilize you, but it would make your muscles basically more limp, I guess would be the word. When it comes to sleep talking, the one thing that I would warn is, in reading things, they said that there are a lot of people who really just speak in gibberish, and then there are a lot of people who are very, very honest. So it's hard to tell if you're getting the gibberish end or very honest. I guess sleep talker can be like a lie detector. If they're actually making sense and talking about things, they can say things that they might not usually say to somebody. Truths, maybe some criticisms that might not usually come out. So I'd be careful how I use that information. Okay. Snoring obviously is a very common thing. A lot of people snore for a lot of different reasons. And so I think I've got like 7 possible causes for snoring, and that wasn't even all of them. These are just the major ones. And obviously snoring is when you make a sound, and they all sound different. But that was just an example. While you're sleeping, some louder, some softer. Some people almost sound like a cat purring, and some people sound like a chainsaw. My dad, growing up, holy cow, he actually doesn't snore anymore because he went through some of this stuff and some of the possible treatments. So some possible causes of why people snore. First of all, they could have a blocked nasal passage. That could be a couple of reasons. That could be something where like you're sick and stuff is built up in your nasal cavity, thus causing the airflow to be cut off. Some people have inflamed tissue, or actually tissue that blocks things. Obviously, in both of those cases, you could take a medicine, or if the snoring is severe enough because of tissue, they can go up in and remove some of that tissue and clear the airways. Some people have what's called a deviated septum, where they've broken their nose, or their nose just didn't develop quite properly, where things are really narrow. They can open those up. I've even seen where they've straightened people's noses back up just so they would stop snoring. Some people have poor throat or neck muscle tone, where like they're really particularly weak through this area. And so when they sleep, instead of things holding in place, the excess non-muscular tissue will actually put pressure on the throat and make the airway tighter, and thus that will cause more potential for things to more of a type snoring instead of a through the nose and through the throat instead of through the nose. Again, that's going to be a simple fitness thing. I'm not saying you got to do like neck push-ups or anything like that, but it could be losing some weight, and it could be doing some simple exercises to strengthen those areas. Throat tissue, over enlarged throat tissue. The next 2 things kind of go together. Some of you guys have had really big tonsils or different throat structures when you were a kid. For instance, one of my family members had to have their tonsils removed when they were 5 years old. So you can probably figure out who this was. Because when they would lay on their back, they would snore really badly, and it actually would cause them to have some problems that we'll talk about on the next slide, called sleep apnea. But that would cause the person to snore because their tonsils would more or less shut off the airway temporarily. And so the air space was much smaller for that person to breathe through. Same type of thing, you might have a long, soft palate, or a long uvula. Again, palate being the roof of your mouth. If that's long and soft, it can actually like deform backwards and start to block the airway. The uvula is a little thing that hangs down. If it's too big or too soft, it can start to block the airway. That's going to cause restriction of the airway and the snoring sound. Alcohol and drug use. In this case, it's not that it's like, alcohol causes you to snore. What happens is it causes those structures in your mouth in your throat to relax so much. In some cases, not all drugs and not all kinds of alcohol, causes things to relax so much that you almost have that tissue slide, causing that to happen again. If that's a major problem, people have to cut back on drug and alcohol use, change lifestyle. With the throat tissue and the palate stuff that I talked about, there are surgeries for that. There you go. Sleep position. If you sleep on your back, you're just more likely to snore. Period. That's the way it is. It's just the way that the structures in your body, your neck, all those, the nose, the throat, that's the way things are going to work. So if you sleep on your back a lot and that makes you snore, the doctors obviously recommend just try to turn on your side or sleep on your stomach, and you will be better off. The other thing is you're overtired. Now, this might sound weird, but when you get overtired, when you finally do sleep, your body has a tendency to over-relax. And again, when you over-relax, well, everything's going to slide backwards or slide over if you're sleeping on your side. So obviously, try to stay on a good sleep schedule. So obviously, like I said, the remedies, I kind of mentioned the remedies as I went through things. That can be medical. They can be a lifestyle change. It can be things that are positional in the way you sleep. One thing even suggested raising the head of your bed up by 2 or 3 inches. So if you have a way, if you're like, a Craftmatic adjustable bed, you could raise the head of the bed. You could sleep on more pillows, or you could, and I read this someplace, you can even get bricks and put the front feet of your bed up on bricks. I know that sounds weird, but even being at that angle apparently helps the airway stay open somehow. If it's something with your nose, obviously taking decongestants. I've seen people who use those breathe right strips. It's a mixed bag of answers online as to whether or not those actually seem to work. They seem to help in minor cases where there's constriction of tissue, but it doesn't seem to help in all of them. So I don't really know what to say about those. I've never tried them myself. When I snore, and I do snore, it's usually because I've rolled over onto my back. So there you go. All right, now last slide. We're going to look at some parasomnias or sleep disorders, difficulty sleeping. People like persistent problems sleeping are called parasomnias. Now, there's a lot. I'm going to talk about 4, but there's a lot of different things that can happen. I'm not going to talk about hypersomnia. I'm not going to talk about restless leg syndrome, although I will talk a little bit of nighttime leg cramps. There's just a lot of things that I could talk about here, but I wanted to talk about ones that were common and ones that you guys were interested in. The first one, obviously, is insomnia. If you don't know what insomnia is, I'd be kind of surprised. Insomnia is a chronic difficulty falling asleep or staying asleep. Obviously, everyone has a hard time falling asleep sometimes. I get really weird around the start of school because it's almost like my brain's overthinking. I'm overexcited. Maybe it's stress, however you want to look at it like that. But I always used to, when I was a kid, have a really hard time going to sleep the night before school started. I don't know if you're the same way. But in this case, we're talking about people that have chronic issues falling asleep. There's a lot. It goes on for many days in a row. Or again, you wake up a lot during the night, so you don't feel like you're getting really restful sleep. The other thing, obviously, on the other end is people that wake up too early. It's like your body goes, nope, it's time to wake up. And it's not really time to wake up. You're not well rested. Some of the common causes of insomnia, you're out of a sleep rhythm. The more that you change up your sleep cycle, you go to bed at 10, you go to bed at 2, you go to bed at 9, you go to bed at 4, you go to bed at 6, you go to bed at, you're all over the place and you're waking up all over the place. Your body can't get in a rhythm. It can't get in here's what we do, here's how things work, or even close to here's how things work. And so that can make it really hard to go to sleep. So you take a weekend, for instance. You stay up until 2 o'clock in the morning or 3 o'clock in the morning on a Friday night. You sleep until noon on Saturday, or you don't get enough sleep. You stay up until 4, you sleep until 10, and now you're wanting to go to bed at your normal school sleep time. Well, you might have a hard time getting to sleep. That hard time getting to sleep on Sunday could cause a hard time getting to sleep on Monday because your body is out of rhythm. Okay. Drug and alcohol use can also impact this. Obviously, they can throw your body out of rhythm, but also certain kinds of things can make it more difficult to fall asleep and therefore can throw you off things. Too much stress. One of the biggest things that I read about was stress, too much stress where people, their brain won't shut off. They lay down and they keep thinking about things, or they're so overly worried about something. Their body is so tense. Their mind is so active that you just can't relax enough to get into that twilight state, to enter into that alpha wave stage 1 and stage 2 sleep. Eating too late at night. Actually, I found that this was a really common one. People that eat large amounts of food or do a lot of snacking or a really large late dinner may have a hard time falling asleep. Body's digesting, body's really active. It might make you feel uncomfortable, even though you may not realize it because you're used to it. Your body just isn't processing the way it should. Too much caffeine too late in the day. I know people that have had a hard time falling asleep, and they've had to stop drinking. I'm not a coffee person, but they stop drinking coffee at noon. They have to, last cup of coffee has to be done before lunch, and they can't consume any caffeine after noon or else they can't fall asleep. So that late night trip to Starbucks before they close might be off the menu, or that soda. I know not as many of you guys drink soda as used to. Pop, if you call it pop. Late at night doesn't help. Obviously, there are other mental health reasons why people might also have a hard time falling asleep. That's kind of unique to the different mental health issues that people can have. Depression, anxiety, phobias even. Phobias can be a huge cause of it. Most people that have a phobia have insomnia because they're worried about whatever the thing is, spiders or clowns or whatever being there. Now, obviously, if you look at the individual causes, I think you can probably figure out what a treatment might be. A lot of people will go to some kind of sleep aid, like a melatonin or some kind of sleeping pill. The thing that you have to be careful of with those is, like anything, your body can build up, it gets used to it. It builds up an immunity in a way. And so you might start off taking 1, 2 ounce or what. I don't even know what a dose of melatonin is. I've never had to use it. I get some gummies, but they don't have anything to do with that. But you take 1 and then it works. But then after a while, you might need 2. And, you start to build up basically a resistance to it. And so that's actually probably the most common sleep problem. The next one's narcolepsy. Narcoleptic people will start to feel exhausted and even fall asleep out of nowhere, even when they shouldn't. And often they go from awake right into REM, right into a dream state. You can be talking to someone with severe narcolepsy and they can just fall asleep. They can be driving a car and they fall asleep. That's why people with narcolepsy can't drive cars. But if you can imagine, you're up in front of the classroom, you're giving a presentation in a class, and all of a sudden you're overwhelmingly tired for no reason, and then you're asleep on your feet. You're not going to fall over. You're not going to curl up on the ground. You literally are going to, and you're more than likely going to drop right into REM sleep. Now, the causes for this one are usually either genetic. So it seems like if your family members have narcolepsy, you're going to have narcolepsy. It can also be chemical. Because of it being genetic or chemical, there is usually a medical treatment for narcolepsy. There's no change your rhythm, don't drink caffeine. It is really kind of be a drug treatment. People with narcolepsy usually have to stay on that, according to what I read, throughout their entire life. Sleep apnea. There are many different kinds of sleep apnea, so I'm just going to talk about it in general. Sleep apnea can potentially be very dangerous. Reggie White, who's one of the greatest defensive players in NFL football history, played for the Packers, won a Super Bowl with the Packers, died as a result of complications from sleep apnea. Sleep apnea. And in sleep apnea, the sleeper will actually stop and start breathing many times during the night, sometimes many times during a minute. And sleep apnea can have a number of different reasons. It can be brain related. It's called central sleep apnea. A lot of people who smoke can develop sleep apnea. People that have excessive amounts of tissue in their throat and can, instead of just snoring, it can completely close off the airway. If you can imagine, you're sleeping or someone is sleeping, and all of a sudden you hear a sound that kind of sounds like, okay, where it's almost like they're choking really quickly because their airways are closing off. That is a lot of what sleep apnea is. It causes really restless sleeping, and the person doesn't feel real rested. And obviously, it can cause complications with the heart. It can cause complications with the brain. One of the common ways that you can realize that someone has sleep apnea is if they snore excessively, and when they sleep, they feel like they are not well rested. Okay. Or obviously, if it's like a situation where it's someone you're around when they sleep, you may actually hear it or see it happen, where they almost like start and you hear a type sound. I've read someplace that there are people that do this as much as 15 times a minute. And that it's not like you really wake up, but it disturbs the patterns and the rhythms. Sleep apnea can be treated in a few ways. For some people, it's just a lifestyle change. Stop smoking, stop doing this, stop drinking so much. Some people, if they lose weight, the pressure from their neck can cause it. And in a lot of cases, though, a CPAP or other medical devices that can open airways or open the mouth can help. I think the most common thing you hear of is the CPAP. The CPAP is like a mask, or there's some less annoying, I've heard people say they're annoying because it's like this thing and there's a tube, and it more or less puts an airflow through to help keep the airways open. So that's the most common thing you may see. So if you've ever had somebody, or somebody who sleeps with a machine with a thing over their mouth, that's because of sleep apnea. That's called a CPAP, CPAP. Okay. Last but not least, I had a lot of questions about sleep paralysis. Sleep paralysis, you feel like you're conscious, but you're unable to move. Okay. First of all, I'm really sorry to tell you this if this happens to you. Most of what I read said, well, it just happens. It's one of those things, and there's not really any treatment for it. But if it's something that makes you really anxious or something that really bothers you, talk to your doctor about it, and they may have some suggestions for how to deal with the anxiety of it, or how to get you to calm down and just kind of relax. There may even be some medications for that, but you can't. It didn't seem like most of the things I read had some, here's how we end this. Okay, now some reasons why it happens. Now, this isn't all of them. Again, abnormal sleep, like that rhythm again. Again, have you noticed it's so important to stay on like a constant rhythm? Drug use, alcohol use can be a cause of sleep paralysis. It can throw off the body rhythms. Sleeping on your back, I can't figure out how this relates to this. Maybe it puts things in an excessive state of relaxation. I have no idea. Certain medications, including some ADHD medications, can cause sleep paralysis. And then actually nighttime leg cramping, which, by the way, has like 5,000 different causes for it. So I guess if you're experiencing sleep paralysis, it's almost like there are some people that experience it before they fall asleep. Their body gets so relaxed they can't move. And there are some people that when they wake up during a dream, it's like their body can't shift from dream paralysis to I'm awake right away. It can last a couple of minutes in some cases. Every case I read about said it felt like it took a lifetime until they could move, especially the first time. Seems like people that have it a lot get used to it and just learn to kind of sit there and go, okay, this sucks. It also involves talking most of the time. So people with sleep paralysis can't be like, hey, it's okay, I just can't move, I have sleep paralysis. You're just like, yeah. So there you go. Well, hey, like that woman, you just stumbled across the finish line. We have a test to take tomorrow. If you have any questions, please let me know. Get that late working, get that dream project in. I'll see you guys soon.